Ma'am, you need to leave now.
Leave for what reason? I haven't broken any rule or law.
Management doesn't want you here. Don't argue. Move.
Are you ordering me under threat of enforcement? Then state the legal basis.
The officer's voice cut through the noise of the mall like a blade. Ma'am, you need to leave, now. The woman stopped walking. Shopping bags hung loosely from her hands. Around them, the Saturday afternoon crowd kept moving carts rolling over polished tile. Children, laughing music drifting down from hidden ceiling speakers. The air smelled like perfume from a cosmetics store mixed with fried food from the food court 2 levels below. Everything felt normal, except for the man standing in front of her, hand resting near his belt, eyes locked on her face. Leave for what reason? She asked calmly. The officer shifted his stance, blocking her path. You're causing a disturbance. Management doesn't want you here. She looked around. No one was arguing. No one was yelling. Shoppers walked past without slowing down. A couple glanced over, curious. That was it. I've been shopping here for 40 minutes, she said. I haven't spoken to anyone. I haven't done anything. The officer exhaled sharply. His jaw tightened. Ma'am, I'm not going to debate this with you. You need to exit the mall immediately. The words drew attention now. A woman near the escalator slowed her pace. A man stopped pretending to browse his phone. Somewhere behind them a security radio crackled. Bow. The woman adjusted her grip on the bags. Her posture stayed straight. Her voice stayed level. Are you ordering me to leave under threat of enforcement? The officer hesitated for half a second, just long enough to notice the phones coming out, just long enough to feel the eyes. Yes, he said. If you don't comply, you will be escorted out. There it was, the escalation. The mall seemed to grow louder and quieter at the same time. Footsteps echoed. A child cried somewhere. The officer took a small step closer, invading her space. She didn't move back. Then I need you to explain the legal basis for that order, she said. Because I am a paying customer, and I have not violated any law or policy. That sentence changed everything. Most people complied. Most people lowered their eyes, apologized, walked away. This woman didn't. She asked for justification. The officer's face flushed. His authority, unquestioned moments earlier, now felt exposed. He glanced at the small crowd forming, then back at her. You're being uncooperative, he said. No, she replied. I'm being precise. A man 10 feet away lifted his phone higher. Another shopper whispered, What's going on? Someone else shook their head. The officer reached for his radio but didn't use it. His voice dropped sharper now. Last warning. Leave the mall. The woman stood still, bags at her sides, eyes steady. I am not leaving, she said. And I want your name and badge number. Silence fell between them, heavy and electric. In that moment, the officer believed he was dealing with a problem customer. A woman who didn't know her place. A situation he could control by pushing harder. What he didn't know was that the woman standing in front of him had spent her career holding people like him accountable. He didn't know that within hours this encounter would be dissected by attorneys, civil rights experts, and millions of strangers online. All he saw was a black woman in a public space refusing to disappear, and that was enough to push him one step too far. The story did not begin in a shopping mall. It began decades earlier in places where power was exercised quietly behind closed doors, where lives were changed with signatures, arguments, and court rulings. The woman the officer confronted that afternoon was named Dr. Angela Brooks. She was 51 years old. Her resume did not fit on a single page. It never had. She grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, the daughter of a public school teacher and a Vietnam veteran who worked night shifts at a chemical plant. Her parents taught her 2 things early. Education was non-negotiable. Dignity was not something anyone could give or take. It had to be defended. Angela learned that lesson young. At 12 years old, she watched her father pulled over for a broken tail light that was not broken. She sat in the passenger seat, hands clenched in her lap, listening as the officer questioned where they were going, why they were in that neighborhood, whether the car was really his. No ticket was written. No apology was given. They were simply told they could go. The drive home was silent. That silence stayed with her. She went to Howard University on scholarship, graduated summa cum laude. Yale Law School followed. Then a clerkship. Then years as a federal prosecutor handling civil rights cases, most attorneys avoided because they were difficult, political, and slow. She prosecuted police departments for unconstitutional practices. She sued municipalities for discriminatory housing policies. She stood in courtrooms where she was often the only black woman in the room, speaking calmly while being doubted silently. By 45, she was appointed Director of Civil Rights Enforcement at the Department of Justice. The title sounded bureaucratic. The power behind it was not. Her office oversaw investigations into law enforcement misconduct nationwide, consent decrees, pattern and practice lawsuits, federal oversight. Careers ended because of the work her team did. Systems changed because she refused to accept vague explanations and internal excuses. She was not flashy. She did not seek attention. Colleagues described her as surgical, precise, unemotional in public, relentless in preparation. She believed justice required discipline more than outrage. That Saturday, she was off duty. No entourage, no assistants, just jeans, flats, a neutral blazer. She was buying a birthday gift for her niece, that was all. The officer who stopped her had his own history. Officer Daniel Mercer was 38 years old, 11 years on the force. His personnel file described him as proactive, assertive, confident. Those words appeared again and again in supervisor evaluations. There were other words, too, buried deeper. Complaints. Civilian reports. 3 formal allegations of discourtesy. 2 complaints alleging racial bias. None sustained. Insufficient evidence. Officer denied wrongdoing. No body camera footage available in earlier incidents. Mercer believed rules applied differently to him because he enforced them. He believed authority was something you maintained, not something you questioned. When he was challenged, his instinct was not reflection. It was escalation. He grew up in a suburb outside Phoenix. His father was a retired corrections officer who believed criminals were born, not made. Dinner conversations were simple. Respect the badge. Questioning authority meant you were hiding something. Mercer absorbed that worldview without realizing it was a worldview at all. To him, it was reality. Over the years, he developed a pattern. Calls involving young men of color escalated faster. His reports used vague language. Subject appeared nervous. Subject was evasive. Subject failed to comply. Supervisors skimmed. The system moved on. That afternoon at the mall, Mercer did not see a DOJ official. He saw a challenge. A black woman who did not lower her voice, who did not rush to explain herself, who asked for legal justification in a public space. To Mercer, that felt like disrespect. The backstories never intersected until that moment. One life shaped by watching power abused and deciding to master the law to restrain it. The other shaped by being granted power early and rarely being forced to account for how it was used. When Angela asked for his badge number, Mercer felt something crack. Not fear yet. Embarrassment. Control slipping. The crowd noticing. The possibility that he was wrong creeping in unwelcome and dangerous. Neither of them said any of this out loud, but everything that happened next was already written in the paths they had taken long before they crossed in that mall corridor. The mall security office called it a routine interaction. On the floor, it no longer felt routine. Angela stood exactly where she was when she asked for the badge number. She did not raise her voice. She did not step back. The bags rested against her legs, the plastic handle stretched thin by weight and time. Mercer noticed them then, not as proof she had been shopping, as clutter, as inconvenience. "Ma'am, I'm not required to provide that information right now," he said. "That's incorrect," Angela replied, "and you know it." The sentence landed softly but cut deep. Mercer turned his head, slightly scanning the crowd. 6 people now, maybe 8. Phones were visible. Not hidden, not subtle. Held chest high, held steady. A woman near a jewelry kiosk whispered something to her partner. A teenager leaned against a column, filming openly. Mercer felt heat rise behind his ears. "I asked you to leave," he said. "You're refusing a lawful order." Angela shook her head once. "Small, controlled. You still haven't identified the law." That was when Mercer decided she was no longer a customer. She was a problem. "Step over here," he said, gesturing toward a bench near the wall. No, Angela replied. The word was quiet, it carried. The air between them tightened. The mall music kept playing, upbeat and artificial, completely disconnected from the tension unfolding beneath it. A stroller rolled past. A child stared. The child's mother pulled him closer. Mercer's hand brushed at his radio again. He did not call for backup. Not yet. Calling would mean admitting uncertainty. Admitting this might not be under control. "Ma'am," he said slower, now louder. If you do not comply, I will escort you out. Angela met his eyes. Then you should understand that you are escalating without cause. Someone in the crowd muttered, she's right. Mercer snapped his head toward the sound. Sir, keep moving. The man raised his hand slightly. I'm just watching. Watching, recording, witnessing. Angela reached into her bag slowly, deliberately. Mercer stiffened. I'm retrieving identification, she said. My wallet. She held it up before opening it. A small courtesy. A practiced one. She removed a government-issued ID and held it between two fingers. I am who I say I am, she said. You should reconsider your next step. Mercer glanced at the card. He did not take it. He did not read it. He saw the seal. He saw the formatting. He saw something that suggested complexity paperwork consequences. He looked away. That doesn't change anything, he said. The crowd reacted to that. Audible now. Disbelief. A woman laughed once sharply. Someone said, Are you serious? Mercer pointed at Angela. Put that away. She did not. You're ignoring evidence, she said on purpose. Mercer stepped closer. His shadow crossed her shoes. You're being detained for disorderly conduct, he said. The word hung there. Detained. Angela inhaled. Not sharply. Not dramatically. She folded the ID back into her wallet and returned it to her bag. For the record, she said, voice steady, I am not disorderly. I am not resisting. And this detention is unlawful. Mercer reached for her arm. Not hard. Not yet. Fingers closing around fabric just above her elbow. The mall went quiet in a way that felt unnatural. Phones rose higher. Someone gasped. Angela did not pull away. She did not flinch. Do not touch me, she said. Mercer tightened his grip. I will if I need to, he said. That was the moment the crowd changed. A man stepped forward. Hey, you don't need to grab her. Mercer turned, anger flashing. Step back. Another voice, female, clear. This is wrong. Someone else said she didn't do anything. Mercer felt the situation slipping. Too many opinions? Too many witnesses? Too much noise. The authority he relied on was being diluted by public scrutiny, so he did what officers like him often did when they felt cornered. He escalated. Hands behind your back, he said. Angela blinked once. For what charge, she asked. Mercer did not answer. He moved behind her. The crowd surged closer instinctively, the way people do when they sense a line is being crossed. A security guard appeared at the edge of the scene, uncertain, radio in hand. Angela spoke again, louder now, not for Mercer. For everyone. I am complying, she said. This is not consent. This is compliance under protest. Mercer pulled her arms back. The bags fell to the floor. One burst open. Tissue paper spilled across the tile. The sound of metal followed. Cuffs closing. Sharp, final. A woman in the crowd covered her mouth. Someone cursed. Phones kept recording. Angela's face remained composed, but her eyes hardened. Mercer exhaled, adrenaline surging. In his mind, he had regained control. What he did not realize was that the crowd had already decided who was wrong. And once a story has witnesses, it no longer belongs to the person with the badge. The cuffs closed with a sound that echoed longer than it should have. Metal against metal. A sharp click. Then another tighter. Angela felt the cold bite into her wrists, the pressure uneven, one side higher than the other. Mercer adjusted them once, not to loosen, but to secure. His fingers lingered a second too long. The mall did not feel like a mall anymore. The lights were too bright, the air too thin. Sounds arrived late, distorted. Someone was crying softly. Someone else was swearing under their breath. A security guard spoke into his radio, but his voice blended into the background noise like static. Angela stood still. She did not fight. She did not twist. She did not give Mercer the movement he might later describe as resistance. Her shoulders remained squared, her chin level. The spilled shopping bag lay open at her feet, tissue paper sliding slowly across the polished floor as people stepped around it. For what reason am I being restrained? She asked. Mercer did not answer. He guided her forward with a hand between her shoulder blades. Not a shove, not gentle. Enough to direct, enough to dominate. Keep moving, he said. Phones tracked them as they walked. The crowd parted instinctively, a narrow corridor forming. Faces passed in slow motion. Shock, anger, disbelief. One woman locked eyes with Angela and shook her head, small and helpless. I'm sorry, the woman whispered. Angela nodded once. They reached a service corridor near a closed storefront. The noise of the mall dulled, replaced by the hum of ventilation and the distant echo of footsteps. Mercer stopped and repositioned her, turning her toward the wall. Face forward, he said. Angela complied. The cuffs pressed tighter as she shifted. A dull ache radiated up her forearms. She flexed her fingers, carefully testing circulation. She cataloged sensations the way she always did under stress. Pressure, temperature, sound, time. Mercer spoke into his radio now. His voice was clipped, controlled. I have one detained. Disorderly, requesting transport. Disorderly. The word repeated in Angela's mind. Not as an insult, as evidence. While they waited, Mercer stood behind her close enough that she could feel his breath when he exhaled. He said nothing. His silence felt deliberate, punitive. Angela looked straight ahead at a blank wall painted mauve beige, scuffed at the corners. In that stillness, her thoughts sharpened. She counted steps, minutes, camera angles, witness locations. She noted the time on the digital display of a nearby store reflected faintly in the glass, 3:18 p.m. She imagined the reports already writing themselves. Subject refused to comply. Subject became agitated. Officer felt threatened. She felt none of those things. What she felt was clarity. A transport officer arrived. Younger, unsure. He glanced at Angela, then at Mercer. His eyes flicked to the phones still visible at the edge of the corridor. What happened? He asked quietly. Mercer answered without hesitation. She refused to leave, caused a scene. Angela spoke. That is false. The younger officer hesitated, then looked away. They walked again, this time toward a side exit. The doors opened to the parking structure. The air changed instantly. Cooler, damp. The smell of concrete and oil replaced perfume and food. The patrol car waited near a pillar. Mercer opened the back door. Sit, he said. Angela stepped in carefully. The plastic seat was hard contoured to discourage comfort. As she sat, the cuffs pulled her shoulders back, tightening again. She winced once. Just once. The door closed. The sound was heavy, final. From inside the car, the world narrowed to glass and metal. Voices outside were muffled. A phone pressed against the window, briefly capturing her face through the reflection. She met the camera's gaze, expression unreadable. Mercer walked around the car and got into the front seat. He did not look back at her. He stared forward, jaw-clenched, hands resting on the steering wheel longer than necessary before starting the engine. The car pulled out of the structure. As they drove, silence filled the space between them. Not companionable, not calm. It pressed inward. Angela watched the city pass by through the narrow rear window. Familiar streets, ordinary life continuing. People unaware of what was unfolding inside this moving box. She felt the weight of the processing room smelled like disinfectant and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a pale glare onto gray walls and metal desks scarred by years of use. Angela sat on a molded plastic chair, hands still cuffed behind her back, posture straight, despite the strain in her shoulders. The clock on the wall ticked loudly. 3:41 p.m. Mercer stood a few feet away, arms crossed, eyes fixed on a computer screen as an officer typed slowly, methodically. Name, the booking officer said. Angela answered. The officer paused, looked up, typed again. Date of birth. She answered. Another pause. Longer this time. The officer glanced at Mercer. Mercer nodded once, impatient. Run it. The keyboard clicked faster now. The room felt smaller. The hum of the lights grew louder. Angela watched the reflection of the screen in a metal cabinet across from her, saw lines of text populate, then stop. The booking officer frowned. That's not right, he muttered. Mercer's jaw tightened. What? The officer leaned closer to the screen. He scrolled, stopped, scrolled again. His face changed in stages. Confusion, focus, recognition. Sir, he said quietly, can you come here? Mercer walked over, irritation clear in his stride. What is it? The officer turned the monitor slightly. Not fully, just enough. Mercer leaned in. The color drained from his face. The room went silent except for the clock. Angela watched him process it in real time. The hesitation, the recalculation, the sudden awareness that the situation had shifted far beyond his control. That can't be right, Mercer said. The booking officer swallowed. It is. He clicked again. Pulled up another file. Official? Federal. Sealed markings Angela knew well. The Department of Justice header glowed faintly at the top of the screen. Mercer stepped back as if the monitor had burned him. No, he said. She didn't identify herself. Angela spoke evenly. I did. The booking officer cleared his throat. She's listed as Director of Civil Rights Enforcement. The title landed like a physical blow. Mercer's mouth opened. Closed. He looked at Angela for the first time since the cuffs went on. Really looked. Not as a problem, not as resistance, as consequence. He started. Yes, Angela said. The door at the end of the room opened. A supervisor entered, mid-40s, silver hair, eyes sharp. He took in the scene in seconds. The cuffs, the screen, Mercer's face. What's going on? The supervisor asked. The booking officer gestured toward the monitor. We just confirmed her identity. The supervisor stepped closer, read silently, then exhaled slowly through his nose. Remove the cuffs, he said. Mercer hesitated. Now the supervisor repeated. Mercer reached for the keys. His hands were shaking. The metal clinked as he unlocked the cuffs. Angela felt the pressure release blood rushing back into her wrists, pins and needles flaring. She flexed her hands slowly, deliberately. I want everything documented, she said. Immediately. The supervisor nodded. Of course. Mercer stood frozen, arms at his sides. His authority had collapsed in on itself. The certainty he carried into the mall was gone, replaced by something raw and exposed. This was a misunderstanding, he said weakly. Angela met his eyes. No, she replied, it was not. The supervisor gestured toward a chair. Ma'am, please have a seat. We'll sort this out. Angela remained standing. You already have, she said. The supervisor glanced at Mercer, then back at Angela. On behalf of the department, I apologize. Angela inclined her head slightly. Not acceptance? Acknowledgement. Your apology will be noted, she said. Along with everything else. Mercer swallowed hard. He understood now. Not just that he had made a mistake, but that the mistake was permanent. The moment the system recognized who she was, it moved quickly. Calls were made behind closed doors. Names were spoken in low voices. Words like exposure and liability hung in the air. Angela stood in the center of it all, calm, composed, already steps ahead. The revelation had ended the detention, but it had only just begun the reckoning. The story escaped the building before Mercer finished his shift. By the time Angela stepped outside into the early evening air, the first video had already been uploaded. A 30-second clip, shaky, cropped. Enough to show her standing still. Enough to show his hand on her arm. Enough to hear the word detained spoken out loud. By midnight, there were millions of views. By morning, there were reporters waiting. Angela did not give interviews that night. She went home. She showered. She examined her wrists under warm light, the faint red impressions still visible. She took photos. Time-stamped. High resolution. She placed the shopping receipt on the counter and photographed that too. Then she opened her laptop. At 6:12 a.m., her legal team was already assembled on a video call. Civil rights attorneys, federal litigation specialists, people who understood systems, not just statutes. This isn't about an apology, Angela said. This is about exposure. The complaint was drafted with precision. Unlawful detention, false arrest, violation of constitutional rights, racial discrimination under color of law. Each claim supported by video witness statements, timestamps, and Mercer's own radio traffic. By noon, the filing existed in 3 versions: internal, media, court. Angela approved all 3. The department responded predictably. A statement expressing concern. An internal investigation announced. Mercer placed on administrative leave pending review. Language careful enough to imply seriousness without admitting fault. It did not work. The videos kept spreading. Different angles, different phones, slower motion edits, side-by-side comparisons. Comment sections filled with personal stories. Names, cities, patterns. Angela watched none of it. She focused on process. The internal investigation uncovered what her team expected. Prior complaints, similar language, escalations justified after the fact. A pattern hidden by fragmentation. Mercer's supervisors were interviewed. Some deflected, some minimized. One admitted quietly that Mercer was difficult when challenged. That sentence became a paragraph in the final report. 2 weeks later, the findings were released. Sustained violations, policy breaches, conduct unbecoming, failure to de-escalate. The words mattered. Each one carried weight. Mercer was terminated. No ceremony, no press conference, just a letter and a locked account. His union declined to appeal. The evidence was too clean. The settlement negotiations lasted less than a month. The department wanted silence. Angela refused. The final number was significant. Enough to make headlines. Enough to force budget meetings. She donated the entire amount to organizations providing legal defense for people who never make the news. When asked why, she answered once. This wasn't about compensation. It was about correction. The department announced reform shortly after. New training. Revised escalation protocols. Mandatory intervention policies. Oversight committees with teeth. Some called it progress. Others called it overdue. Angela returned to work. The same office, the same desk, the same responsibilities. But the weight of her authority now carried something else. Proof. The proof that bias could be documented. That power could be confronted. That even a routine stop in a mall could unravel a career built on unchecked assumption. Mercer never spoke publicly again. Angela did. Not to describe her fear, she never mentioned fear. She spoke about systems, about patterns, about how authority reacts when it is questioned by someone it does not expect to question it. The crusade did not end with a firing. It ended with a record. And records, unlike apologies, do not fade. What happened in that mall was not complicated. It only felt complicated because power prefers confusion. Legally, the violation was clear from the beginning. A person in a public place engaged in lawful activity cannot be ordered to leave without a legitimate, articulated reason. Refusing to leave is not a crime when the order itself has no legal foundation. Detention requires reasonable suspicion. Arrest requires probable cause. Mercer had neither. Disorderly conduct is one of the most misused charges in modern policing. It is vague by design, meant to address actual disruption. Not calm disagreement, not questions, not refusal to surrender dignity. Using it as a shortcut when authority is challenged turns law into a weapon instead of a safeguard. The Fourth Amendment exists precisely for moments like this. It protects people from unreasonable seizures, not just in dark alleys, but in brightly lit malls, coffee shops, sidewalks, anywhere daily life happens. When an officer detains someone without cause, the violation does not begin at the cuffs. It begins at the assumption. That assumption is rarely random. Social psychology calls it implicit bias. Patterns the brain forms from repeated messages about who belongs and who does not. Bias does not announce itself. It hides behind words like suspicious, uncooperative attitude. It thrives in moments where discretion meets unchecked authority. Angela did not fit Mercer's internal image of who had the right to question him. That mismatch triggered escalation, not because she was loud, not because she was aggressive, but because she was composed. Calm defiance is often more threatening than anger. For viewers watching this story, the lesson is not to provoke confrontation. It is to understand rights before they are needed. If you are stopped, remain calm. Ask clear questions. What is the reason for this order? Am I being detained? Am I free to leave? Document when possible. Witnesses matter. Cameras matter. Tone matters, but legality matters more. Do not argue in circles. Do not insult. Do not physically resist. Compliance under protest preserves both safety and evidence. And when you witness situations like this, understand your role. Recording from a lawful distance is protected. Speaking calmly can shift outcomes. Silence always favors the abuse of power. This story ended with accountability because the victim had knowledge, position, and resources. Most people do not. That is the uncomfortable truth. If someone with federal authority can be handcuffed in public for asking a legal question, imagine the vulnerability of someone without a title, without representation, without an audience. Justice should not depend on who you are. It should depend on what is right. So the question is not whether Mercer deserved what happened to him. The question is why it took this long for the system to correct him. Why complaints were ignored. Why escalation was tolerated until exposure made it impossible to deny. Systems do not change from good intentions. They change from records, from evidence, from pressure applied consistently and publicly. Angela Brooks did not raise her voice that day. She raised a mirror, and in that reflection, a system saw itself clearly for once. Now the question belongs to you. If this had happened without cameras, without witnesses, without status, would the outcome have been the same?